Okay, we call meeting to order, and let's start off with roll call. Bill Hudson, here. Glenn Walsh,
Here, so to speak.
Gene, here. Alex, are you remote? Alex, we're told is ill this evening, and BJ is up in Denver with a family obligation, so we do have a quorum with Bill, Gene, and Glenn here. All right. First thing on the agenda is consideration of the 2024 audited financial statements. Ronnie Farmer, our auditor, I believe is online, and Aaron, would you like to introduce the audit?
Sure. So we've got the 2024 audit in front of us, and I believe we sent that in the board packet earlier or late last week. And then Ronnie is here via Zoom to go through it all with us. And I'll turn it over to Ronnie. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Welcome, Ronnie.
Okay. Good evening. How are you all?
Good. Good.
Good. I assume you've had a chance to.
Saying that he took Jeffrey Epstein took women from young women from all over. But his new.
Sorry about that, Ronnie. Go ahead.
Okay. I assume all of you have had a chance to look through the audit.
Yes.
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 Are there any questions that you have before I spend a few minutes and go through it with you?
I have a couple of questions, but I'd love to hear your report first.
Okay, that's not a problem. As I told Aaron, everything worked out good, but that $125,000 CD that went missing in December, I don't know what happened to that. I'm only kidding. I'm it's supposed to be a joke, but I'm gonna lighten the mood up a little bit here. So there was no money missing, no evidence of fraud or anything else. Okay. Okay, what I'd like to do then is, if you'll turn to page 4 of the financial statements, we'll just start with the statement of net position and go through a couple of things there to really point out changes more than anything from last year. And all of you are aware of those changes, I'm sure, just because they've happened throughout the year. But page 4 shows the governmental activities, which is your general fund. But this general fund is somewhat different from the one on page 6, and in that this page, the statement of net position, includes the fixed assets of the general fund, if you will. The 326,000, about a third of the way down, is the net book value of the assets owned by the general fund that's part of Lagos Area Water. And that never changes. You can buy assets, sell assets, trade them in, or whatever. Not a big thing. Now, in the business type activities, and we will take a look at the 2 balance sheets for the water and wastewater funds, the construction in progress of the $27,791,000, that definitely has gone up from last year. It's going up, as you well know, as construction continues on with the project and stuff. The other assets, the $9.3 million, just to remind you, that's the dry gulch amount that has been set aside. You're not depreciating that. Nothing's been done with it for the past several years. And again, that's just a set number, at least at this point anyway, of $9.4 million. Loans committed, not yet received. That was a new one for me last year, whenever the Colorado Water Board required you to book the total amount of the debt and then start paying off the total amount of the debt, including interest, whenever you hadn't received it. But this $4,320,000 was the amount left to be drawn down on the construction loan or loans from the water board. And then bonds and loans payable down at the bottom, $34 million. Now, the new loan that you made right after the first of the year is not included in this. It was $11.3 million, if I remember right, and that came in 25. So that amount will definitely increase the $34 million, other than the payments that are made on the debt that you have outstanding. The lower right-hand corner of the $90 million, that's the net worth of PAWS as of 12/31/24, everything based on historical cost. It's just a number. You can't really do anything with it, but it is a large number. So any questions on that balance sheet or statement of net position? Okay, let's take a look at page 5 then, which is an income statement. And this is trying to give the reader like a for-profit presentation of a governmental fund. And if you look at the The top line under governmental activities, general government, 909,000 of expenses. You don't have any charge for services, no operating grants or capital grants received during the year. So you had a $909,000 loss. So the question becomes, how did you cover that loss? And that's just down below with the property taxes, SO tax, some interest earnings, miscellaneous income or loss. Then you transferred 500,000 out of the general fund into the enterprise funds. So overall, a $96,000 loss, but that includes some depreciation. It also includes that 500,000 transfer, and you all control the transfer. There's nothing in the property taxes. You're collecting those or anything that says you have to transfer money, but you choose to do that, and that's fine. And that creates that $96,000 loss.
And Ronnie, quick question, those transfers are limited by Tabor to 10%, is that correct? From the general fund?
That's a good question. What Tabor states, at least what everybody's consensus is that I've talked to, is that if an enterprise fund receives 10% or more of non-service revenues, then you can lose your enterprise fund status. Now, I've talked to several CPAs, and their position is that it's going to take almost an act of Congress to really remove an enterprise fund status. But if you'll turn to page 11, we can just address that specifically. The 500,000 was transferred into the wastewater fund. And if you look at the revenues on the wastewater fund column, 3.3 million. Okay, so that's the total revenues from services. That's about a fourth of the way down the page. So the 500,000 is definitely 10% more than that number. If you go further on down, there's 827,000 on system investment fees, 269,000 on other interest. So that's a little over $1 million. So that gets you to about 4.3 million. Well, the 500,000 is still greater than 10%. Okay, so you could argue, and I'm not going to tell you that it would be a right argument because I don't believe that it is, that for 24, you were not an enterprise fund for the wastewater fund. What that means is you can't raise rates unless you get approval from the taxpayers. Well, you've got something else that says you have to raise rates, and that is a lender that is telling you your rates are going to have to go up to service the debt. In my opinion, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not trying to practice law or anything else. I think that the debt covenants supersede what an interpretation of, the 10% restriction on Tabor, under Tabor is. Because now Tabor was a constitutional amendment. I mean, there are all kinds of things you could argue. Again, I'm not an attorney and I don't agree with most of Tabor regardless. But I don't think that you all have a problem with doing what you're doing because you have a mandate to do what needs to be done. You have to borrow the money to do that. The other thing that comes into play under Tabor is if you're not an enterprise fund, the loans become income. Well, then you're just, then you've got this screwball accounting that's going on between an enterprise fund that has debt that has to be repaid, a non-enterprise fund basis that means debt is recognized as income. So that puts your income at, $30 million. And then you don't have the 10% problem. So which one of these is right? My position is that what you're doing under the debt covenants, and again, a mandate that has to be done, you have to do the construction, supersedes what someone's interpretation, the court's interpretation of the 10% wording would be. Okay.
Well, that's good to know. I appreciate your clarifying that, Ronnie.
Yeah, well, again, don't take that to court because I'm not an attorney, but I would not worry about the 10% deal with what you all are doing and transfers. I still think you can sleep at night without having any problems.
Thank you.
Okay. Good question. And I'm sorry I can't give you a more direct answer, but that is a good question. Okay, if you'll turn to page 6, this is the balance sheet for the general fund. This is the format and the presentation that Aaron gives you every month. And it shows, it doesn't show the fixed assets, which is not supposed to. So your assets are cash, taxes receivable that are delinquent to 53,000. The 1,174,000, that's the estimated amount of taxes to be collected in 25. As a receivable, prepaid expenses, you have 211,000 in payables, accrued vacation and retirement, and then an equity of $1.6 million. And your general fund is really a really strong fund financially. There's nothing wrong with what its position is at all. And the 1.2 million in property taxes definitely covers the expenses, at least based upon what's gone on in the past. Excuse me. If you turn to page 8, this is the income statement. And it shows a 1.3 million in revenues, 894,000 of expenses, and then the 500,000 transfer. So an $82,000 loss overall. But again, you guys determine the transfer. I mean, if you really get down to worrying about the 10% rule, then don't make the transfer until the last day of the year. Take a look at the estimated revenues, make sure it's less than 10% of 3.2 million. Actually, make sure it's less than 4.3 million based upon 24's numbers, and then you'll be fine. Okay. But again,
And we had a 10% bump in wastewater rates anyway, so
yeah,
those numbers for 25 will be even higher.
yeah, they will. But again, as I said, if someone comes in and really challenges you and it goes into court, it's like, okay, you do have a 10% increase in rates. You had to do that because the lender required it. But is Tabor an overriding factor? And in my opinion, no, it's not, because you're doing what has to be done. And Tabor's 25 years old now. It didn't take into account inflation and mandatory requirements or unfunded mandates or anything else. So it's really to the point now where Tabor is there to give a refund to taxpayers that actually file a Colorado return.
Thank you.
Okay. An $81,000 loss, again, is not that bad. One thing to look at on a general fund is that your fund balance, and this is just a general rule of thumb, should be no less than 30% of your expenditures. If you've got, say, 900,000 of expenses and a $500,000 transfer, that's 1.4 million. 30% of that's what, 420,000. Well, your fund balance is 1.6 million, so you're 4 times a basic rule of thumb for having a fund balance, which again shows a very strong financially general fund. Okay. Turn to page 10, if you would, the balance sheet for the 2 enterprise funds. Again, basic numbers, construction in progress went up. The debt went down, well, even up a little bit. I think there was some new debt in 24 toward the latter part of 23 into 24. And it's pretty standard. There's nothing really unusual here. The cash position, like the 13,826,000 in the water fund, a lot of cash, but that's going to be spent out just as you go through the construction process. So nothing to get excited about. The income statement is on page 11. If you would take a look at that page. You can see about a third of the way down operating income or loss. The water fund had what I would consider a small profit of 195,000. Wastewater had a $388,000 loss, and that is after depreciation of 2.3 million in the water fund and 936,000 in the wastewater fund. So when you add back depreciation, it becomes a very high profit, and we'll take a look at the cash here in a minute. Whenever you go down to the rest of the operating statement, you can see the capital expenditures paid out, the interest expense in the water fund, capital contributions, and then the transfer into the wastewater fund, and so on. Whenever you look at just this statement itself, and you look at the wastewater fund, you can definitely say we need to increase rates by at least 10% to cover our operating costs. Okay, there are a lot of things that come into play with just looking at an income statement, and it's not really a complete picture of what's going on with the organization when you look at just the income statement for an enterprise fund. Okay, so let's take a look at the cash flow statement, which is on page 12. Okay, the thing to look at here is cash flow from operating activities. Now, you all are in a construction project and have been for several years, for a couple of years now, and will be through 25, probably into 26 even. But this statement then has to be taken with a grain of salt also, because you're looking at history here. Like in the water fund, you had 2.4 million positive cash flow increase in the water fund itself. So just to put in the back of your mind, the water fund is generating 200,000 per month positive cash flow. Now, by itself, somebody could say, you know, you guys are making too much money. You need to lower your rates. You need to do whatever. But whenever you look at the rest of the cash flow statement, which you come down below and look at what's going on, you can see that you had bond principal payments of $1.8 million, payment of interest of a little over $1 million. So you've got $2.8 million worth of outflow that has to be covered by something. And that something is the net operating income on a cash basis. Okay. So again, 2.4 million of cash inflow, big number, definitely agree with you, but you're paying out 2.8 million just based upon the 24 numbers. Okay. In the wastewater fund, a $454,000 positive cash flow from operations, transfer in of 500,000, that gives you 900,000. Then where did that go? Well, you did borrow 11,560,000. I thought that was into 25, but it was at the end of 24 that came into the wastewater fund. Capital assets, 1.1 million, bond payments of 400,000, at least for 24. The wastewater fund did not have any interest because of the negotiations that the board did on the notes with the water board and how that was set up. So that's just principal repayments. But when you get down to the bottom line, the water fund had a decrease in cash of $1,987,000. Now you've got 5.5 million of cash at the end of the year. You can't lose $2 million a year and still be viable at the end of 2.5 years. Okay. Now, again, whenever you look at these numbers, you have to take into account proceeds from new debt of 9.9 million, 22 million of assets acquired or constructed. There was a lot of work in process. So the $1,987,000 is not based upon just operations. It is based upon the inflows and outflows of the borrowings and the construction in progress. Okay. So don't lose any sleep over the $2 million, but definitely keep that in the back of your mind that there is debt service that has to come out of that 2.4 million positive cash flow. And theoretically, the construction and the money borrowed will offset. That never works that way because there's always some breakage in there. And then there's interest, that has to be paid on the debt. Plus, you had 4.3 million of borrowings that will come into play in 25 that will show up on this cash flow statement as a capital-related financing activities. The water fund, a $12 million increase in cash. I mean, you look at that number by itself, you know, my God, we're just rich. We can just go close everything up and take the cash and go south. But 11 million of that was borrowed money. So when you take the 11 million out, you have about 1.2 million, still a high number, don't get me wrong, and a very good number. So one thing you look at there too is, do we really need to transfer 500,000 from the general fund? You don't need to leave the 500,000 in the general fund, but you may not need to transfer the 500,000 even if it's budgeted, because the water fund may be strong enough by itself. Okay. Now, what happens then? You can build up cash in the general fund and you can transfer that cash. But as was mentioned earlier, the 10% rule could come back. Okay, come back and haunt you just a little bit. So don't hoard cash in the general fund just because you don't want to transfer it to a water fund or a wastewater fund. Okay. The 10%. Yes.
And that 10% rule also includes grants that we receive. Is that correct?
It does, yes.
They're state grants.
Yeah, the federal funds aren't included, but state grant fund money is included in the 10%.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you look at the cash flow statement coupled with the income statement, both of those funds are strong, viable funds. And Glenn, you mentioned earlier that the 10% increase, and I know y'all did a rate study, and again, the lenders coming into play. There've been the parity statements and reports that have been done. you're going to have to increase revenues, as you well know, to be able to cover the debt, and hopefully that's going to be taken care of. And again, in my opinion, that's an overriding factor over Tabor on the 10% wording in Tabor. I've never seen a court case, and I'm not looking at them all the time. Don't get me wrong there. I've never seen a court case challenge the 10% rule. And again, most CPAs that I've talked to are really taking a very, aggressive, I suppose, stance you could say. And they're saying, yeah, you did get more than 10%, but you're an enterprise fund and you have certain rights that have to be there. And again, with an unfunded mandate or this that has to be done, this project, then we're not going to worry about the 10% rule. Okay. Page 14 starts the footnotes, and they go on for several pages. I'm not going to go through those with you other than point out a couple of things. Really the debt service requirements that start on page 23. I do encourage you to read the footnotes, but also at the same time you're reading the footnotes, go back through the MD&A, Management's Discussion and Analysis. Aaron has a lot of good information in there that ties to the footnotes and can help pull everything together. But the footnotes will give you an idea of cash flow requirements on debt service. It shows the next 5 years individually and then in 5-year increments after that until the maturity of the bonds. And then at the bottom on page 27, in top of page 28, the total debt is $56,113,000, and all that debt is in the two enterprise funds. The general fund paid its debt off in 23. And again, that debt will go up just by borrowing, well, possibly go up. It depends on if you have new borrowings in 25. And then the rest of the footnotes, pretty much the same as they have been in prior years. Naturally, the numbers have changed just because the year changed, but the wording itself is just very similar.
Ronnie, a question on long-term debt, which I read it and I'm not sure I totally understood it. The 2015 revenue bond has been paid off and we're done with that, correct?
Yes.
Correct. The 2008 revenue bond, maybe this is an Aaron question, is for what projects?
Oh, I know that.
So I think that was greenhouse.
Is that Highlands, the Highlands and Highlands?
Okay, okay. And how does well, it's not a revenue bond, I guess, but how does the Running Iron Ranch debt fit into that picture? Or is that a different picture?
It's in that picture.
It's in that picture.
Yeah, if you look at on page 27, the last two line items in the bottom table.
Loan A and Loan B, okay. Yeah, they've got different names than I'm used to, so thank you, Aaron.
Okay, and then you notice that, and again, that's a good question. The loan B, the $4,565,000, there's no debt service payment on that because the principal payments were set aside for, I think it was 20 years, wasn't it? That if you didn't do something with the Dry Gulch project, then that you had to do something else. There's $1 million that comes into play there also that was debt forgiven that the state can claw back.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, the budget start on page 33. That's the general fund budget. And the general fund did not overspend its budget. So there's no problem with with anything there. You did adopt a supplemental budget toward the latter part of the year, increasing the 956 to $1,456,000. And then the actual expenses were 894 with the $500,000 transfer being just a push. So it's good to see that there was a supplemental budget adopted that did away with, or that made sure that you didn't overspend the budget. And then on page 34, if you'll take a look at it, this just gives you a summary of the budgets for all three funds. You can see the general fund 956 increased to $1,456,000. Both water and wastewater funds, those budgets were not changed, and they were not overspent. So, you know, all is well there with the state. Okay, the only other thing that I had was on page 45 is the single audit. And for 24, if you spent more than $750,000 of Fed funds, then you're subject to a single audit. We all spent 19 million because that's what you spent on the construction project with the money received from the state. Now the state has to let you know what the federal fund dollar amount is, because it's definitely not plain on the drawdowns that you all have received during the year. So in February of each year, the state does send a letter out and say, you know, this is what you've got. They give the ALN number, which is the old CFDA number, and then you're just subject to a single audit. And really what it boils down to for Pagosa Area Water is you have no issues. You have internal controls in place. You treat federal funds the same as you do non-federal funds. You make sure that the money that you received is being spent for the purpose for which it's supposed to be spent for, which is a construction project. You have the compliance issues that are taken into account. There are two big compliance issues. One is Davis-Bacon, and the contractor does that and submits information to Aaron several times during the year, many times actually during the year, that Davis-Bacon is being met. And then there is another provision in there that you can't do work with any sub or any contractor or subcontractor that's being disbarred or debarred, I think is the word that they use in the uniform guidance. And the contractor checks on that, and I did some looking on that myself, and you have no problems with that at all. So with all that said and done, the last 5, 6, 7 pages just state that you're where you need to be with the single audit, and you have no problems with compliance or internal controls, and everything is good.
Okay. And our not being qualified as a low-risk auditee is just a function of the category we're in, nothing specific to us, right? Well, you're right. Now, the reason you're not a low-risk auditee is you did not have a single audit in 23. And now in 25, you would not be considered a low-risk auditee. Okay. The only difference between high risk and low risk is if you're high risk, 40% of your federal dollars have to be tested instead of 20%. Well, you have one program. So you can test 100% of it, and you know it adds another hour to the audit type thing. So for you guys, it doesn't make any difference at all. It's not a black mark, in other words. Right. Thanks.
Okay, then the audit just needs to be submitted to the state, which I believe that Aaron has done that. And that keeps you in compliance with their 7-month filing requirement and gives you an extra 60 days next year if you need it. Hopefully you won't. But nevertheless, that 60 days comes in handy once in a while. Overall, things are good. Again, I don't test controls like I'm going to give an opinion on internal controls, but controls are tested through disbursements. They're tested through receipts. You all still have very good controls over receipts from users. Several different ways the user can pay. It makes it difficult. It minimizes the risk of embezzlement. Your banks are reconciled monthly. Call Trust is reconciled monthly. You have good financial statements during the year. So, you know, no issues there that I need to bring to your attention.
I just have one, basically a proofreading remark, because you just, I don't mean to be petty, but on page 24, the heading I think should be water treatment plant rather than wastewater treatment plant. Again, not a material thing, but you know.
When was that page, what page was that again?
I think it's 24, where it's outlining the snowball loan. So I think it should, I think it should just, the heading should just be water treatment plant loan 2023. That's all. It's nothing, like I said, nothing material.
I can make a note, it's right here, right there.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Is this gonna be the copy that goes in the board books? Cause we can just note with, you can just physically note it, we don't have to have our maybe do it.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, we can reissue page 24 and punch holes in it and have you guys enter that or give you another copy with that change.
Oh, I don't know.
No, it's a real problem.
Yeah, we'll just put a note on you, thank you.
Okay, all right, that's fine, because again, we can change it if you want. It's not any big deal. It's only paper, not etched in stone. Okay, that's all I had. If there aren't any other questions, I'll let you guys get on with your meeting.
No, thank you very much.
You bet. Glad to do it.
And you're willing to stick with us for another year?
I am, even though Aaron's leaving. Aaron told me that he was leaving, and I said a few choice words that I won't repeat here, and then said congratulations. The hospital is definitely getting a good person, and they're better off for it. So hopefully you guys will get the same type of person.
thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie.
You bet.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you. We will talk to you guys later.
Okay, take care.
Okay, I believe that we need to vote on the acceptance of that audit with the notation of the erasing the word waste out of wastewater.
Correct.
So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Motion and a second to accept the audit as presented with that one notation. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Unanimous. Thank you, guys. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Consideration of entering drought stage 2 for our 2020 PAWSD drought management plan. I'm guessing, Justin, that's yours?
Yeah, so I think I've kept you guys up to date somewhat on the emails. Monday or Tuesday, I get the numbers from Hatcher, and the way we do drought now that we're beyond the 4-mile shutoff and snow water when it's gone to zero is it's based on 3 factors: how much water's in Hatcher, how much water's flowing down the river, and what the state's drought stage says that Archuleta County is in. And they're weighted differently now. The heaviest weight is on Hatcher, second heaviest weight is on the river, and then the smallest weight is on the drought stage. And due to those things, I throw them into a spreadsheet with a little equation, mix it up, and it spits me out the answer.
So it's sort of like AI.
It's sort of like AI, except not so intelligent. So Hatcher's really good shape. Hatcher down as of Monday was down 31 inches, and for this time of year, that's pretty fantastic. The reason for that is we really they didn't turn us off till very late this year. They turned us off at about the median time, then they let us take another 2 feet, I think. So it kept Hatcher really, really full. So Hatcher's a good shape. The river is low. River as of Monday was 41 CFS, which is pretty low, and that's really what the driving factor is. Our drought stage with the state is what they call D2, which is I think severe or something like that. So that's where that at. But anyway, you put all that in, and it puts us in based on the drought management plan of 2020. It puts us in at stage 2 of the drought. So we want to abide by that, and per that, when we go to stage 1, 2, 3, or 4, that takes a board decision to move us into that. So that's where we are, and so the consequences of that. Look up real quick. Somewhere. Is irrigation will only be permitted between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. So it can't do it in the middle of the day, which is good practice anyway. Odd numbered addresses can irrigate on odd numbered calendar days and even on even calendar days. Irrigation is permitted on Monday through Friday only, so weekend watering would not be prohibited. Gardens and.
Would not be prohibited.
Would weekend watering is prohibited.
It is prohibited.
Gardens should can only be hand watered. Restaurants can only serve water upon request. And we encourage hotels to only wash towels and sheets, when customers change or if they request it. Oh, and then there is also, if you use over 4,000 gallons, that next stage, for residential use would be increased. That second tier would be increased for residential use, not for commercial use.
Is there just one tier or is there a couple of
Or
tiers?
anything over 4,000, that tier is doubled. So then I think after 8,000, it goes up again.
Okay.
So all the two higher tiers are doubled.
Okay. Double. Ouch.
I've always thought of it this way, and I'm interested in you guys' take. When we go into a drought level, whatever it is, we're protecting next year's water. Essentially. I mean, especially since Hatcher is at such a good level right now. We're thinking next year. So it's a proactive, I guess,
Sure.
that's the way I look at it.
That's a good way to look at it.
So I have a question. When you say the river is down to 41, that's the San Juan River.
San Juan River.
And that's being measured at the bridge downtown,
That's correct.
which means if there's a lot of agricultural withdrawals upstream, we have no control over that.
Correct.
So we're sort of dependent on the agricultural users determining us going into drought stage 2. In a sense,
In a sense, I mean, if you
because
have
we're
a
not
whole bunch of
worried about Hatcher, but we are measuring off of the river.
I actually did a little bit of research the other day and I couldn't find the answer. Like you said, the 40 CFS or 41, whatever it is downtown. Is there another state monitored site downstream after all the irrigation water goes back into the river? Is there another one downstream? What we could compare that it
I
would be?
can look at that. I don't think there's one before Navajo Lake though, but I'll look into that, but I don't believe there is.
Okay,
And then, get that one to Navajo Lake, all bets are off. Doesn't make.
I mean, I guess if we wanted to know, we could, stand on the Hot Springs Bridge and look and then, drive down river 10 miles and look again and.
Yeah, I do know we had to sandbag to get water diverted into our San Juan diversion. So it's pretty low, and that's below the irrigation returns. And it's pretty.
That is below the irrigation?
Well, it's below Park Ditch's irrigation return.
Okay,
Which is a big one. So,
right.
But much more critical for us is the river 5 miles in the other direction, right? I mean, our town intake, so.
Yeah, and that intake was rebuilt last year, maybe 2 years ago.
Right.
We did a joint rebuild with Bootjack, and it really helps our flow into our diversion. And since we're not having any problems with that one at all.
Good. Anything else on drought? And we'll need to vote on that to go into stage 2. Is there any other thoughts before we call for a vote?
So give me a reason why we shouldn't go into stage 2.
I think we should go because that's our drought management plan that was approved in 2020, and it was a committee of citizens that helped to build that, and so we're following that plan.
Okay.
Right.
I'm of the opinion that we're thinking about next year, not only this year, but well into next year. So I would entertain a motion to
We go
go
to drought study as it starts to rain.
What's that?
As it starts to rain.
So I would move that we move into drought stage 2.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, could I just introduce one thing? Is one, at times you worry about, we radically changed the old plan to make it much more kind of an action plan that really works ahead of any potential crises. And so the idea of not putting in place this plan is really counterproductive. But secondly, let's say this drought stage 2 were to continue through and into September, and then we're looking at the winter. This is just something to consider. Is there any reason why we wouldn't want 4,000 gallons to kind of be the standard winter allotment? I really don't. I've never understood why we have the same winter and summer allotment of gallons. I mean, in order to use 8,000 gallons of water in November or December or January, I don't know what you'd be doing to use that much water. So just something to think about when we get to the end of the season, whether we might want to consider, what is the natural end to the watering season, and put in place kind of a winter schedule of allowed usage before you pay a little bit of penalty rates.
That's a good question, Glenn. I don't know if that would entail changing the rate study or anything like that, but certainly a good question that maybe we should circle back to later this year. Any other?
Let me also address the thing you said about the previous drought plan. The way the previous one worked is it based going on in stages based on your cumulative amount of water. How much water is in each lake, not just Hatcher, but all the lakes. How much water is in the river. And so the problem with that one was you never went into a drought stage till October, because that's when everything really got low. And so you never really jumped ahead. You were never ahead of it. You're always chasing it. And it never really made sense to go into drought stage 2 when in 2 days you're going to turn the water back on. So that's why we totally revamped it. This is the way we did it. Was to
I remember that back in the day.
We can jump, if it's really a dry year, we can get into the drought stage really early on, or in this case, probably midway through the summer. So at least we're being a little more proactive than it seems a little more proactive than reactive.
Yeah, better to err on the side of conservatism than wait for months and months. So
Gene's kind of conservative himself.
And we had no early season triggers based upon the call on 4 Mile. Nothing. Which was.
And I guess it could be said that if the monsoons really get here and Hatcher comes up and the river comes up, we could go out of drought 2. That's probably not going to happen, but it is possible, is it not?
Let me play some numbers real quick here. Let's just assume Hatcher doesn't go up, because it's not going to go up much. If the flow goes up to 200 CFS, we go back to voluntary.
Okay. So
And that's doable. We actually had a day last week that spiked at 100. Very short, but it did. So.
And like you mentioned, a lot of work went into this. It's a much better drought management plan than the one I remember working with. And like you say, I see no reason not to follow all the good work that went into it. So if I don't hear any more discussion, let's call for a vote. Do we want to enter into drought stage 2?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous and done.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the last item on the agenda, manager talking points. Justin.
Got a couple things. One is, do we want to have Marcus send a letter to San Juan regarding the day-to-day operations of the ranch? I think the way that staff reads the agreement, the three-way agreement is that they have, well, it says that they're responsible for day-to-day operations. So when neighbors call on fences or LP wants to go across or things have to happen, we want to, and I know you had talked to Candace about that this week, but do we want to officially say something that they should be taking those calls and taking action when things come up?
Yeah, maybe I can give a real brief description. Candace and Rob Hagberg and I met for coffee on Monday, just a real informal, a nice meeting. And we talked about a number of things, but one of the things I requested actually was, you know, with Justin retiring, you spend a lot of time on the day-to-day of the ranch, a lot of phone calls, and there's just lots of things that need to be done. So I requested of Candace, I said, you know, my interpretation of the 2015 agreement says that San Juan should be doing the day-to-day management. So I just made an informal, polite request. Can you do that? And, you know, she mentioned a few times that they have no staff, and I get that. Our staff is maxed out as well. So if it's something that they could do, and we need a formal letter, I would be in favor of that.
I don't wanna say anything positive about San Juan, but the way I read the agreement, they're responsible for the project.
No, the word day-to-day operations is.
Is it in there?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have brought it up if it wasn't, yeah.
I don't remember reading that part. Maybe Renee said.
I'm trying to get to that.
And the feeling I got, I don't think there was a commitment, but the feeling I got was, there wasn't any opposition to my request, let's put it that way.
So the actual provision reads, provide day-to-day management and project facilitation as needed.
Day-to-day management and project. Project what?
Project facilitation.
Day-to-day management
Management.
and.
Project.
Okay.
It'd be really nice if it said day-to-day management of the ranch.
Yeah, it would be.
That would be nice.
Glenn, it would have been nice to put that in.
Glenn, do you have any thoughts on those conversations and maybe the intent of that provision in the agreement? It's 4.5.2.4.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really have to kind of wrangle language not to see that the day-to-day management is distinct from the project. I mean, if you wanted to combine them, there's a much more elegant way to do that. In fact, you almost have to be intentionally, inelegant to phrase it that way.
And like I said, when we were talking, I just gave her some examples. Demolition of the house, weeds, fencing. My understanding is that there's some pretty large expenditures coming up on the park ditch for repair. All that kind of stuff takes a lot of time. So any help that San Juan could provide would be good, and it wouldn't be in violation of the agreement, that's for sure.
Having said that, I'm quite open to, further defining that with a more cooperative sharing agreement of expenses, and that could supersede that, or that could provide an agreed interpretation of that. I don't see.
Okay.
I think Justin was thinking that he would like to have Marcus send them a letter to start that process.
Sure.
Reminding them that maybe our interpretation of section 4.5.2.4 is that they're responsible for the day-to-day management of the ranch and project facilitation. And we would start that process with a letter from Marcus. That's what.
That's been,
Because Justin's getting a lot of phone
If
calls.
we can direct staff to do that, that would be
Rick
good.
Marcus,
And,
Rick Marcus,
Yes.
write that letter.
for staff to contact Marcus.
Yeah.
Polite letter.
oh, yeah, absolutely. And maybe the same thing with Kathy and Dawn and Andy on the other agreements that remain unsigned. We need his legal interpretation or assistance there.
So, do we want Marcus to send the letter to Jeff Kane? I mean,
Maybe
it seems like,
Seems like it's private,
Jeff,
be contacted.
is like, I'm the lawyer here. If your lawyer's talking to anybody, they could be talking to me.
Sure.
Um,
I would leave that up to Marcus, I guess, if he thinks that's the best way to get activity
It
going.
probably is.
I'm just
Yeah.
throwing that idea out there. And I would also point out that San Juan doesn't have any staff other than Sally. Day-to-day staff.
Right.
But they're quite willing to spend $25,000-$30,000 for engineering. So
I
it
get
seems to
I
me,
get it.
it
I
seems
get
to
it.
me that they have money that they can hire someone if they need a house demolished or whatever they need done to take care of that property. Do we want to have them deal with the Webbers? Because that's an issue. It's an issue, and we've discussed it many times. And having our staff deal with the Webbers is not a pleasant thing to have happen.
Well,
Right.
especially with our manager retiring, it's.
Yeah.
You're not done at Snowball yet, you won't be done for a while. And that's why this informal meeting was held on Monday. And like I said, I didn't get any real pushback, didn't get any acceptance either, but she seems to be, Candace anyway, there's been a couple of emails back and forth that sounds like she's interested in the gravel thing and some other stuff, so I would say consider yourself directed to contact Marcus.
Right. I mean, what about just now that I'm kind of an ancillary member, it's easy for me to recommend this, but what about a meeting just between the Running Iron Ranch subcommittees? And just to kind of see what potential agreement is there. I think whatever we arrive at is going to have to involve some negotiation and some common sense, and what the different organizations how they might define day-to-day management is going to be directly tied to their different timelines, their different hopes for the property. It's not that simple. So, and we've been very good about it. I mean, honestly, all along, we could have done the law firm thing, and we could have had all of our staff record tenths of an hour that they dedicate to it, and we could have hit them with a bill for 11% of that, which would be very substantial, which we haven't done. So, I don't know. I don't know. The lawyers first, provided that it's just an opening. And then maybe you guys maybe the first action after that would be to get the two subcommittees together to see if there's some common sense kind of compromise there.
Yeah, that can also be done in parallel.
And on that question, Glenn and I have been the subcommittee, the Running Iron Ranch subcommittee. Glenn's been out of town, and Gene's obviously taken the initiative to reach out to Candace. Do we want to change the subcommittee so that it's Gene and myself, and Glenn would be the alternate member? Do we want to make that an official change?
Just to clarify, the whole reason for the meeting on Monday, the way I interpret it was, Bill and I went to not their last meeting, but previous to that. And I suggested, if you don't think that the meeting we had here, the joint meeting, solved any problems, why don't you invite us to a meeting? That was kind of the intent of last Monday's coffee, but there was no mention of a date or a time or anything like that. I don't know if San Juan is thinking about it, or, you know, what the position is there, but that was the reason for the meeting on Monday was, okay, if we have a meeting, what are we gonna talk about? You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, I have no interest in attending a jawing session, but or a meeting with San Juan. They're having turned down for the second time a free reservoir site. But on the specific issues of day-to-day management of the ranch, you know, I would think you and Bill and Rob and Chuck could get together and see if there's some groundwork there to come to some reasonable agreement about how we would share the time and the monetary costs. And I'm open to pushback from them about certain items that they don't feel is part of their day-to-day management because they don't actually see this as their medium-term plan for the ranch anyway. I mean, I find it hard to put myself in San Juan's shoes to justify some of the decisions they make, but I couldn't put myself in their shoes to see how they might view the property. I mean, they may not wish to contribute overly much to the maintenance, for instance, of the internal ditch, because they want to flood it. They're not really concerned about maintenance of it. They may see certain expenditures not as immediate expenditures, that they'll see those when they get their big, $400 million grant that's going to solve all the problems. We'll take care of it then. So,
well, if you don't mind, Bill being the senior member on the subcommittee, and I'll be happy to fill in.
How old are you?
Mentally or physically?
The senior member, I'm not sure.
If you want to make that contact with the subcommittee from
Sure.
San Juan and
Sure.
and set up a subcommittee meeting,
I would like to do that. I would like to do that.
All right, any more
But-
talking?
But we already have directed staff to have Marcus start the process.
Any other talking points?
Yeah, I think in your board packet, you had some of the letters we've gotten in response to the surcharge. We just wanted to get those to you guys' attention. I think one or more of these people will be at next month's meeting in August, so they're gonna give you a little more feedback on that, so.
Thanks for saying that out.
You're welcome.
I don't have anything on water loss. I'll update you at the August meeting on water loss. Snowball water treatment plant, we are starting. We're starting smaller components. Vendors are coming in and we're getting components started, so that is moving forward. So I do believe we'll at least have we're still planning on tearing down the old plant probably October. That's probably when that's gonna happen.
So you'll be processing all the water through the new plant by October.
Yeah, that's the hope.
That's
that
exciting.
we're processing legal water.
Are you gonna-
New plant.
Are you gonna save the bolt that came out of the Aquarius for art?
We'll say, Art can save any part he wants in there, I guess. If there's any part you want, you may wanna go, maybe we should have you guys put little stickers on things you guys want.
I'll go out there and I'll think of something good.
We are gonna save the plaque.
We're saving the plaque, yeah, we're gonna save the plaque, but, BISD upgrades are moving forward as well. If you go out there, it looks like there's a spaceship, because they're getting ready to pour the floor, which is,
It's Tuesday,
how many, 200?
284 cubic yards.
Just concrete,
So we're gonna pour the entire floor of the clarifier on Tuesday.
so Tuesday there'll be concrete trucks up and down 160 they're starting about 4 in the morning.
Several hours.
They'll take a while, so.
Lake Forest won't look as pretty as it does like
Yeah,
that
we-
when they're done.
We had to coordinate that with the highway project, because it wasn't enough concrete for both entities at the same time.
Oh my God. Forgot about CDOT.
Yeah, so.
Is that coming from our local plant?
San Juan ready mix.
Good job.
And I think that's all I got.
And then we were just going to, I'm sorry if I missed it, Glenn, were you going to be the alternate for the,
yeah, you know what?
do you wanna do that? Or do we wanna
Sure.
formalize? Or do you want to just keep it?
Well, when we originally set it up, it was Paul and I were on, and then Bill was the alternate. And the thought was that we'd always have two people to go to different meetings. Originally, it was Paul and I would focus on like potential sale of the ranch, and Paul was not interested, and Bill was interested in going to meetings about, cooperative alternate uses of the ranch, that could help, say, to pay off, basically pay the mortgage in lieu of a sale, and to see if there was anything in either of those approaches. So we had three members. So my idea was that Gene could then I'll take Paul's place as the alternate who can be pulled in here or there when or if you even think my input is worthwhile. And the two of you can be the folks that actually meet on a regular basis to try and nail down, some workable agreement with us about, at a minimum, what will we do this year? Are we going to apply some herbicide? Or are we going to hire somebody to do, a decent ditch maintenance? That kind of stuff. And then how do we share the cost?
Are you suggesting that my volunteer salary be doubled then, Glenn?
Well, I wanted to hire you as the district manager, and you turned me down. So
Mama didn't raise me. Speaking of
So
that,
I will make that a motion, Glenn.
Okay.
speaking of which, I
You
think,
second.
unfortunate, well, Alex has been a part of it, but VJ's out of town, but can maybe give you a quick update. We have been doing interviews. And
I just made a motion.
What's that?
I just made a motion.
Yeah, a motion to change the
Deny.
composition.
Oh, I thought you meant district manager.
No,
Oh, okay.
I just made a motion
Make
that
it,
you and I would be on the running iron subcommittee and Glenn would be an alternate.
do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now do I get an increase in salary?
Should have put that in the motion.
Okay, anyway, like I said, we're doing and we'll continue to do interviews. And my guess is hopefully in August, but if not, definitely in September. I think we should be able to give the entire board a report on what we've done and what our recommendation is. And we're looking pretty heavily at promoting from within. We've got some staff that are well qualified with a lot of tenure. And so we're looking at everything, but that's where the hiring committee, which is Alex and myself, that's where we're at.
And we expect to have the advertisements next week. Yeah, we'll get that next week on the website, Colorado Rural Water and SDA.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Hey, I just had one thing to add that I didn't, is that, it's hard to get when you read an audit, it's pretty dry, but you can read an audit and take some things away from it. And I just wanted to compliment you all on the staff, is that the number and also the importance of budget line items that I can see in that audit you worked extremely hard to bring in under budget is extremely impressive. Because it was a challenging year, there were a lot of added costs, and I can just see how you doubled and tripled your efforts to really knock down some line items. So I wanted to thank you for that.
All in favor?
Thank you, Glenn.
Aye.
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 Did that without a motion, Glenn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, kudos to staff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For sure.
Yeah,
I do-
and those line items are, in many cases, difficult line items to bring in under budget. So.
Yes. Renee?
Oh, I just had found the citation for the attendance requirements for board members, so would you guys like me to read that?
Yes, please.
Provide, okay. A director is required to attend board meetings, Attendance may be made via telephone conference or other electronic means as long as the director is able to hear and to be heard. Electronic attendance satisfies the attendance requirement. Any absences should be noted and excused where appropriate in the minutes of the meeting. It doesn't delineate between special and regular meetings. But then following that, it says a director's office shall be deemed to be vacant if the director who was duly elected or appointed fails to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings. So that's where the regular meeting portion is, if your office becomes vacant.
Right. You can see kind of how the machinery works, because all of us have the right to call special meetings. And if you got a board member who is very passionate about an issue, he or she could call special meetings every 3 days or 4 days. And your only recourse, as the rest of the board, is not to show up. There's no quorum, and then that person could push for a vote not to excuse the 4 people who didn't show up, but likely they're going to vote in their own favor. So it's kind of, you can kind of see the way those articles, why they're structured the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we can, I think if I heard you correctly, it would be the board's discretion, and let's take, for instance, tonight, Alex is sick, physically sick.
Mm-hmm.
We can either accept that as a good excuse or not.
Mhm.
And same with, DJ.
I would, in fact, I would like to make a motion to excuse Bruce and Alex.
And do you know why
From
Alex
this
is, do you know why Bruce isn't here?
Yeah.
Okay,
He had a family engagement.
Yeah.
And this was a suddenly scheduled meeting. It wasn't like a
right.
regular meeting.
Okay, we have a
I would
motion
like-
to
I would like
excuse,
to excuse both of them from this meeting.
we have a motion to excuse the 2 board members who aren't here for what we feel are good reasons. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, great.
Unanimous.
Would you like to do this moving forward? Would you like me to remind you if you guys don't remember and we have someone
Please.
Sure.
absent?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I can do that.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we're done.
I
All right.
assume,
Aye.